Hi, welcome back to this last week of lectures on how to run a MOOC. My name is Prabhakar, I am with IIT Kanpur. How do we do a MOOC? Actually, we can run a full MOOC on it. It's a very complex topic, there are a large amount of detail that are involved, but we will try to capture that in 3 short lectures. Dr. Sodhi is going to give you a talk on the workflow aspects of a MOOC. Dr. Balaji's talk will be on interactions and event management in a MOOC, and in this talk I will concentrate on the content aspects of a MOOC. Now, the first thing about a MOOC is it's completely a team effort. There may be some center forward scoring the goal, but the back and the goalkeeper are very, very important. And a MOOC starts something like 6 months before the actual launch date, when you start conceptualizing and planning and raising the funds and designing and start working on the content, and then finally by the time you distribute the certificate, answer student queries, do the accounts, submit them to the audit, answer their questions and so on, it will be another 2 months after the official closing of the MOOC. So it is actually a long spanning event. One of the first things you need to decide upon when you want to do a MOOC is to figure out your motivation. Why do you want to do a MOOC? Some of the reasons may be you have something to share with the world, you have come up with a new technology, a new idea or new way of looking at things and you would like others to know about it. Or you want to help spread the word, evangelize some aspects of science or knowledge that you are passionate about. It may be your job, you are a teacher and your job is to teach, or maybe you want to make money. It's not clear how to make money out of MOOCs, you know by this time, but nevertheless. So the first thing you need to do if you want to run a MOOC is to identify your audience. It's a very, very important part of the course because that's going to decide the nature of the course. It's going to decide the content, it's going to decide the interactions. For example, if you are, let's say, doing a MOOC for students as against working professionals, the pitching of the content is going to be very, very different. The interaction design is going to be very, very different. The expectations of the students are going to be very different from the expectations of a working professional. Once you identify your motivation and the audience, you come to the objectives of the course. This is again very critical. At the end of the course, what do you expect those who have done the course to be able to do? Do you expect them to know something, or do you expect them to be able to do something? I am calling them, you are teaching them what as against teaching them how. This is a very fundamental difference and very critical, because if you are teaching them how, then you are going to have huge number of exercises and interactions designed in such a way that the actual skills are exercised and they are talked about. In a what course, there is a large amount of information that is conveyed, and of course discussions do happen for clarity and so on, but the stress on actual doing may be less. So the learning objectives have to be very clear when you want to do the course. Another aspect of a course is it a course on a special topic like MOOC on MOOCs, or is it a course which is like a course for a university credit, like a course on undergraduate physics, chemistry, psychology or whatever. These two courses again have different perspectives that they need to touch. For example, if you are talking of a special topics course, the content design is very challenging. You will have to do a lot of research, you will have to figure out what is important, you will have to conceptualize the course. Often there is no syllabus that you can pick up and start developing content. You will have to do a lot of research to figure out the state of art and what is important and what is not, and the very challenging question of how do you condense all that you know into a 10-minute module has to be worked out. So special topic courses, the challenge is of a certain kind. In a special topics course, the certification is not critical. Students don't go there because they get a certificate. They go there to learn something, and hence assessments are also not very critical. Certificates based on some assessment criteria like you should have got so many marks in this quiz or exam or in the assignment is not critical. Whereas if you are talking of a course which is like equivalent to a university credit, mostly done by students, then course design is easy, is not all that difficult, because there is typically a syllabus and sometimes there are many textbooks associated with this domain, but assessments become very critical. It's important that you run the quizzes and exams and assignments in time, have enough number of them, and monitor the student, give feedback to the student, and so on. The content design, of course, is equally important in both, but assessments come to the fore when we are talking of a course of this kind. Okay, let's look at this whole thing from our architecture that we sort of unearthed during the course of this MOOC. We said the important things in an online course is the educational resources, the interactions, identity management, assessments, learning analytics, certification, and event management. I am going to put a ordering on this and make a statement that certification, learning analytics, and identity management actually come one level below in importance compared to educational resources, interactions, assessments, and event management. These are important. Certification is important, analytics are important, portfolio is important, but they make second order differences. So given this, we need to talk about 1, 2, 3, 4 events, assessments, interactions, and educational resources. Dr. Balaji's talk is going to be about event management and interactions. He is going to tell you all about this. So I am going to talk about assessments and educational resources. Okay, assessments. Now, as we have seen, assessments is basically figuring out whether the students know something about the course, the content that has been taught or not. But the critical thing I want to flag is assessments is not about testing or testing alone. Yes, we need to know whether the student has understood the material, can make sense of the material, whether a student can manipulate real world from the knowledge that has been learned from the course, and based on this I may give a grade, pass, fail, or some competency of certain kind. But apart from this, assessments are also important to let the student know what is important in that domain. It is actually a pedagogical tool. Many of you might agree, very often I remember things that have been asked in the exam many years later and not what has been taught in the classroom. So they somehow tend to have an implant in the memory which stays for long, and assessments from that sense are actually very important and part of the learning metaphor. Lectures or content as we are calling it, of course they are the most critical aspect of the course. Half the battle is won if you got your lectures right. Everything starts with a lecture, right? Even if we are talking about connectivist MOOCs, there has to be a starting point. Another thing is lectures are in your control, interactions are not, because there is a Vakta and there is a Srota. Sometimes you get a very participative audience, and sometimes for whatever reason the audience may not participate as well, in which case the interactions may not fly off as well as you would want. But lectures are completely in your control, so you can do a good job of it. The thing to remember about lectures is, out there amongst the students there are people who know as much if not more than you do about the subject. So try to get as many experts as possible. Keep this in mind that you know something about the area, but you are not the final authority on this. It's very important because this is an attitude which will actually govern how the course is run. It's going to impact your interactions as well. Now I have some ground rules which are based on my experience of doing a few MOOCs. It's very good to have all the lectures recorded before the course starts. But I think it's not really essential, and maybe you should keep a few lectures to be done once the course starts, looking at the audience, their background, their interests, and how the course is progressing, and so on. So there is strictly not need to get all the lectures recorded before the course starts, but at least 50% of the lectures, if they are canned, then you are in good shape. I also believe that you should have at least a 2-week lead in the content. Video I am going to release 2 weeks from now, I should have it recorded and ready. And often you end up having more lectures than you release. This is our experience, which is okay. The thing about videos, the lectures, is it's good to follow the guidelines. We have seen what kind of videos are engaging. There are some guidelines people have come up with, so try to follow the guidelines. The central thing is try to concentrate on the content. Don't bother about special effects and making the videos dance around and so on. They may sound interesting and eye-catching, but after a while what carries is what the instructor has to say, not the form but more the content. The thing to remember is you must talk to the camera. This will take a few attempts. The first few recordings are going to be difficult. The audio is going to be hard. You will look here and there. You get distracted, and but after 1 or 2 lectures, you will quickly figure out that there is that camera which you need to look at, and after that it will be easy. This is an interesting thing that I learned. You may want to buy more than one copy of the shirt. For example, after a hard day's recording, you will find that there is some fly sitting on the specs, let us say, for one minute, and then you want to re-record it, but the shirt has gone for a wash. So if you have 2 copies of the shirt, you can easily do that. Now the thing to remember in my mind is today the audience is very savvy. They have huge amount of exposure. They have seen many places where online courses are offered, and the expectations are high. They are going to compare your MOOC with the best MOOC in the world. So don't try to cut corners. Do an honest job, the best you can, and ultimately that's what matters. So thank you for being with us in this course, and all the best.